Do 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 do. That's the Mario Brothers theme song. All my old heads know what's up. All my new heads don't know jack. Oh, snap. Well, welcome to my weekly live, everyone. This is live challenge number 9. So technically I've got 3 more lives left. I may continue doing this. We'll see. If this is the first time that you're watching, thank you for spending some time with me. This is where I break down some different concepts that will support you on your journey towards healing, towards wellness, and everything in between. My name is Francis. I'm a trained therapist and a coach and creator of Divine Resistance. Some people call me a therapy coach. I help women remove emotional blocks so that they can thrive. So on today's live, I really want to talk about the stories that are looping in our heads, the stories that we tell ourselves. And I really want to just kind of talk through that a little bit with you guys. Most of you are just one decision away from a completely different life, right? Yet many of you aren't able to realize this because of old, outdated stories that are just looping inside of your head. So what kind of stories am I talking about anyway? Well, for one, you didn't just wake up one day with these stories, these viewpoints, these perspectives, these values, these beliefs. Most likely these stories started ages ago, right? And they kind of just started to morph. So it could have been from parents or some other significant caretaker that just straight up planted seeds in your head during childhood. It could be stories from a teacher, it could be a friend, or even someone that you dated. But now that you're older, some of these seeds have fully blossomed, and most of these stories are what holds us back, and they eat away at us. But we can't stop telling them, right? At least that's what we tell ourselves. We can't let these stories go. But when we tell ourselves these stories, all we do is we continue to feed the loop. And the loop, it validates that terrible feeling inside. And so then why do we continue to tell ourselves these stories and also share it with other people? Well, sometimes it's comforting. Here's the thing. We've built this habit of sharing these kinds of stories with other people. And sometimes it sort of validates us. It feels affirming, but at some point it doesn't move us forward. Have you ever had someone tell you a story and it's as if they're literally reliving that story in that exact moment? That's a sign that that story is unresolved. Some of these stories include stories that tell us that we're not good enough, or we'll never be able to do that thing, or stories like this isn't gonna work, or it's just the way it is, right? A lot of people believe that these stories, they believe them so much so that to pull them away from it, from that story, means that they're losing their identification with that story. So in other words, those old repeated stories set over time for long periods of time can be really fused with your identity. So we have to be very mindful about that. And so what happens is we've pretty much placed ourselves in a bubble, a soundproof bubble, and that's sort of impenetrable from hearing and absorbing new or different stories. Honestly, we get really, really good at it until, of course, it's no longer useful, right? We're so good at telling these stories that we've convinced ourselves that, these stories are true. They feel true, right? Because all our lived experiences are from those stories, so they feel 110% accurate. But sometimes they're not. That's the stories that you tell yourself are most likely untrue. Because, well, first, they weren't your words to begin with, right? So at any given moment, you can really change that story, literally, your story. But it takes getting to the root of it and asking yourself, whose voice is in my head? Who's saying this right now? You know, who and where is it coming from? Because the stories that you have on loop are the same stories that are holding you back from you realizing your highest potential. So I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, could the opposite be true? Could the opposite of your story be true? You have a disempowering story. Could we reframe that into an empowering story? And what if that story was true? So let's play around with that idea. What if it does work? What if you do heal those wounds? What if you are capable? What if they say yes? You know, if you're going to use all of that energy to oppose something that you really want to create or manifest into your life, why not take a moment and flip the script and use all that energy to work in your favor instead, to create empowering stories? You know, I sometimes think of life like a game, not the get a bunch of points, save the princess kind of game. That's probably why had that Super Mario Brothers theme song in my head. But a game where I have the ability and the power to decide for myself what I'm allowing to fester inside and what can I just toss in the trash. You know, when you let those unhelpful, disempowering stories take space in your mind, what you're doing is dumping all of your resources, again, all of your energy into something that's not gonna serve you. But what if you took all those resources again, just sit and imagine what that would be like, used all that energy and just shifted the way that you saw things? What would happen to your entire world if you started to adopt this new perspective? You know, in other words, be your biggest fan. Be your own superhero. Rewrite the stories to work in your favor. And you're going to start to feel a lot different over time. Create your own hero's journey. You know, the old stories, what they do is they suppress the good stuff, right? But the new or reframed stories amplify the good stuff. So your experience and everything that you went through is real. I'm not devaluing that. But there comes a time where that old story needs to lose its power, its grip over you. And you know that you've moved on from that story when two things have happened. You stop telling that story, or the story no longer has an emotional grip on your spirit. So when you tell it with ease. You tell it with a sense of calm. How do you move past those stories? You have to be brave enough to attack it. I don't want to use the word attack because it sounds like aggressive, but you have to be brave enough to gently usher yourself to the root so that you can solve it. And then from there, you have to be brave enough to rewrite that story. And that's the hardest part, because there are going to be so many layers and different ways that you're going to process that story. And each time it's going to take a different and new challenge for you to do so. But the more that you do that, the better you get at it, and the less that your framework comes from old stories. All right, folks, that's all I got for you. I'm here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. 3 more lives left. I may just continue just doing it. And yeah, let me know what you think about the lives. Would love some feedback, or if there's any topics that you'd like me to just kind of like, dissect. But be sure to catch me on Rally and Rejoice, a conference where I talk about fear, sponsored by the International Black Woman Jubilee. Starts October 4th. I posted it on my Instagram already. And be sure to check out my latest podcast interview with Wanda from Black Woman Travels. It was a pretty vulnerable podcast, so enjoy, and I'll see y'all next week. Ciao.